Muy buenas noches. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to all for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as time and love and support everybody sends my way. From the heart, I thank every single one of you. Also, if this is to your liking of somewhat, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype the video to help the message get out a little further in the hope it could become something positive to someone that could find use of it. Gracias. Well, to get right into it, today I'm going to touch on what I've been asked numerous of times, you know, which is to speak about residents or camaradas that were at one point taggers, party crews, and how they're looked inside. It's going to circle around that, right? As well as what we go through. We go through different phases of Clecha, and some of us just we don't lose Clecha that we should let go. But anyways, today I want to talk about Looney. Looney belonged to a party crew in West LA, and do please excuse my ignorance. I don't remember the party crew, but at the end of the day, he would end up going to YA, doing his thing, and down the line, he would become from Crazy Riders, right? And I ran into Looney when it was rocking and rolling up north, right? To be exact, in Tracy the first time. Like I mentioned in past stories, we were at war with Norteños, and it all stemmed from them removing the bulldogs from the yard. It was a time where you could say we had an alliance with the bulldogs, and basically the camarada in charge told him if they touched the bulldogs, it was going to be on and cracking. And well, you guys know that's how my stay there was, literally days, right? But anyways, down the line, I had a chance to actually be on the yard with the camarada in Ironwood, and the homie by this time had a reputation already, right? And basically, it had nothing to do with stepping on toes. He was a hothead. I believe we all are, right? That come from way, just the way things are in way. Someone says something you don't like, you buck up and boogie. And I believe it would have been the same case with me if it wouldn't have been for Raul that sat me down and told me I was doing things wrong, right? Lifting my hands, or when the doors cracked, it was like a bell to go do something. And in reality, I was getting no recognition, right? But, you know, that recognition right there could be good to some extent. To some other extent, it's bad. You're reckless. You're a crash test dummy, right? You gotta remember when it comes to Billy's, their objective is to hold places and basically have power on different yards. Make money, move weight, pick up crews, keep expanding the round flow, right? So that becomes power with them. But anyways, once we were in Ironwood, the vato got in so many personal stuff that I couldn't even start to tell you. But I'll refer to three, right, that caught my case. The first one was with his, and it had to do with, Basically, his celly took a bird bath without putting the curtain, right? Which is disrespect, right? Not to put the curtain and as grown man having to slip up or whatever and see what is not peaceful for one to see. But anyways, the homie felt disrespected and he didn't go and tell his bloquero. It didn't get bring up to see what was the next move, which it would have been a sell move, right? Because it's not that serious. But Looney basically took flight on his celly, right? And as you guys know, it's a no-no to put hands on another camarada, at least in the level fours, right? And he basically got southsiding for it. But he was beat around the bush, as many of us are that from YA when it comes to butt whoopings. So he took it on the chin, moved forward. The next one was basically on the yard, on the volleyball, right? Basically, you're playing a game, but for someone that I personally know, you take things to chess, basically clowning around, it becomes serious. That's why I was really against camaradas clowning around in the sense of pushing, touching, X, some take it personal, get offended, and it escalates, and it becomes a problem, and basically throughout the game, someone said something, and Looney took it beyond that, right? To the point that he laid the yard down. And again, it was on a camarada that, the way that we reacted to it was, yeah, it was the second strike for Looney. And the other vato for playing around, he also got a couple coscorrones, right? Nevertheless, after this, you know, I took a lap with Looney and basically tried to share what was shared with me, right? From Raul, and told him like, hey, you gotta slow your roll down. This ain't being looked in a positive way. Just to let you know, Tavato in the volleyball court, he's in touch with somebody, and he made it an issue, spoke on you, and how there's issue beyond issue with you. And next time is not going to be looked at in favor for yourself. That way mentality, I understand it. I was that individual, right? That you said something I didn't like, and it was go time. But unfortunately, there's rules and regulations we gotta abide by. Here on the Jardins, you're laying the yard down, you're slowing the feria, you're slowing the program down. You know, which I understood. I could see it in his face. He didn't want to hear it. I believe I heard it because who it was coming from. Again, I was nobody. So, anyways, fast forward, I don't know, a month. In between this month, I had gotten word already by Terco telling me, like, hey, what's up with Homeboy? That's how I knew they had taken it up the rank, right? And it could have been my fault for giving the Vato a discipline for playing around, and he felt it wasn't the reason, excuse me, the reason it went so far. It wasn't his fault, but he still got disciplined. Terco told me that, what's up with this camarada, you know, causing problems on the program, on the yard. And He specifically said Looney, from Crazy Riders. He had his whole info. Again, to me, that's another way of snitching, right? But anyways, it's not looked as so because you're whining and crying to a peely. But anyways, uh, that's when I circle around with Looney and I basically tried, right? I try to be positive in the sense of coming to the understanding of what we go through in YA and what was shown to me. But nevertheless, Looney was Looney, right? And I told him clearly that day, that Billies don't want you to be back there for doing pegadas. Even when it's doing pegadas for the causa, they don't want you back there sitting down. They don't want you to be a torpedo. You know, if you're out there taking care of business, business comes in a lot of ways, not just being with it. I met a lot of vatos that they're down in the sense of taking care of business, but eventually they hit a brick wall because they're not taking care of business. Business comes, like I said before, right? Sorry, I keep repeating myself. It's staying relevant, making feria, holding down yards for certain pilis when you requested of, bringing in jale, touching on different avenues, different angles, and yeah, when it's time to boogie boogie for the right reasons, not just for being a hothead. Anyways, like I stated, time went by and I was on the workout area, right? And basically the yard went down. When you're in a level 4, you can't get down. It's just it's rules. When the yard goes down, the first thing you got to do is, even though there's no warning shots per se, is you look around the whole yard. You analyze where it's coming from. If it's on one of our own against a different race, it's go time. You to run across that yard. Never mind the tower, and get it, you know. And that's exactly what was happening. You looked over at the handball court and Looney is going heads up with a wood. Again, when you look around and you see it, everyone on a level 4 knows if you get down without analyzing the yard and it goes down as so, you got something coming, you know? And anyways, we all rushed over there. They started throwing their little things, speed hit grenades, Huda started running in. So basically it became any gabacho near you, any wood near you, it's time to go. They had to bounce. So anyways, it flared up. It became a big issue. And again, it was over nothing. Basically, you guys know we were allowed to play with woods, right? So he was playing handball with a wood. It gets out of hand, right? I used to love handball. I know how it goes. It goes further than just a game. Clowning. Some people cannot be clown, which was the case, and Looney took off on the gabacho. And of course, the wood being a man, he bucked up too, right? Anyways, like I stated, the yard went down. It became a big issue. You know, almost all the raza, all the wood pile got involved. It stayed on the yard though. It didn't escalate to inside the buildings. So I myself had a real good relationship with Whitey, right? That had the wood pile at the time on the yard. and it got squashed. Nevertheless, the homie went to the hole. Then he did his little hole time. Then he went to Sea Yard. As far as I remember, on Sea Yard, my primo from Crazy Riders was there. You know, sorry I forgot to mention, but it's how we started talking. You guys know how it is. Oh, you from Crazy Riders? Hey, you know so and so. You know so and so, and you start building that trust, you could say. Nevertheless, even me knowing the rules and regulations, I could not go against Terco, or in this case, I couldn't go against Joker, right? From Hazard, which is the person that they cry to, which I got that I'm appeal from both of them, eh? Que palabra out there, dude has to bounce. Now, I'm a real firm believer, or I was, of you giving camaradas clechas, right? Because I got given clecha in building a camarada, schooling him, and not wrecking a camarada, not breaking one, you know. But when it comes to being a headache or becoming a headache to the pilis, there ain't no passes. As far as I could maintain it on the yard, I did. Because again, that's what I truly believed it, that camarada should be school. Because I was a wrecking machine. I was a torpedo too. And I got given that opportunity by a pili. So I felt it was for me to pass on to camaradas, right? Not like I was anything, I was nobody. I was simply camarada, a simple camarada doing what I was supposed to do. Nevertheless, I could understand it in 1,000 different ways. But again, I was just a person, a mouthpiece. So I did what I was told. Same word, and within days, unfortunately, the homie got whacked and removed. Looney was a knucklehead though. He tried to come out to the group yard on A right in 5 block, and he was done. There was no coming back from it, and it was not cause he was a weenie, not cause he was a snitch, not cause he used dope. It had to do cause he had that little man's complex on him. You couldn't say nothing. All actions took an immediate reaction with him. It's not That's not how prison works. You see, basically you're there to follow suit. You cause chaos in the program, you become a victim. And what is the program? The program is having the yard keep functioning, making feria, bringing in dope so that it gets to an individual that can get joy from getting high and putting money in their pockets. That's all the program is now. It ain't about, you know, I'm happy to see there's a peace treaty with the norteño raza and and the sureños, but that just goes to show how it ain't about any type of causa. Every belief that sureños had at one point when it came to norteño raza NF got pushed aside as please tell me what the norteños and the NF was formed for. It got pushed aside. And for what? So the program circles around on what it truly is. their power, their money, us chasing their feria and putting things up their vein and in their pocket. Unfortunately, it's what it is now. So, you could be the downest individual, but if you expect to win everything by fist and blood, it's just not gonna happen. You become a problem. You have to go down, put your head down, listen, and follow suit. And that following suit is not what at one point I personally believed. But again, you know, as things are, it's real hard to touch on what the problem is, you know, but you can't take the finger from the gato mentality. Look, Terco took this camarada's career for what later on the years nobody could tell him anything, right? Look what happened with the crib in high desert that caused a reaction in Salinas Valley. Nobody did anything. Nobody could tell him anything. Because that's exactly, as a camarada, what you're told and are meant to do. Put your head down, get dealt with when it suits them, and when they cause a problem, for you not even to speak on it, put your head down. Again, don't fall to this misled beliefs, to these lies. Maintain loyal to those you need to. Stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved one.
This is so we started. We always